Now it's come time to close the seminar. It has been an extremely interesting day. We've gone through our society from one side to another, discussed different elements, different perspectives to gender equality, and we've also heard the opinions from the audience. We've got some concrete ideas. We've got many perspectives, and now I would like to ask Matti Maasikas, the Deputy Minister for EU Affairs from Estonia. He's representing the Estonian EU presidency this year. Estonia has been very supportive to the gender equality agenda during their presidency, and we would also like to say how grateful we are for organizing with us this conference today. Please. Hello. Hi, I'm Mira. You can speak from here.
Thank you very much for this kind introduction, and thank you all for organizing and taking part in this important seminar. I want to thank the European Institute for Gender Equality, all the hard work and long hours they have put into developing the Gender Equality Index. The work you do is indispensable for policymakers and politicians and helps achieving gender equality that we have sought for a long time. As a proof that gender equality is important for the presidency and for the EU as a whole, we have asked the European Institute for Gender Equality to present the Gender Equality Index to the EPSCO Council meeting on the 23rd of October. Equality between women and men is a fundamental value of the European Union, but unfortunately we are still able to see inequalities in many spheres of life. When it comes to gender, we can only tackle inequalities when we take evidence of the inequalities between men and women in our societies, and we take it more seriously. Also, we have to accept that we need changes, even though these changes are not to the immediate advantage for some members of our societies. It is important that gender statistics and research ensure that policies are designed based on true evidence. In addition, statistics and research also help us monitor the effectiveness of the policies in place and highlight the challenges to be tackled. But they also shed light on where we have progressed, so we can witness whether our efforts have been successful. The main action plan for gender equality in Estonia, the Welfare Development Plan for 2016-2023, which came into effect in June last year, also makes use of the Gender Equality Index. The success of the measures in the action plan are monitored in 3 domains: work, money, and power. When we look at the index more closely, we are happy to see that gender gaps have narrowed in Estonia and in the European Union, although progress in the past 10 years is far from being satisfactory. The power domain has shown the most improvement, but it still has the lowest overall score. Even though 2/3 of graduates from journalism are women, they make up only 1/3 of board members of public broadcasters in the EU, and therefore in media, women are largely absent from the top. Women in media, along with women in politics, still face sexist hate speech more than in other domains. The index shows that all countries in the EU have room for improvement, and full gender equality has not been achieved in any of the domains. Estonia is performing well in the subdomain of work participation, but at the same time, Estonia suffers from a high horizontal gender segregation, with women and men studying and consequently working in different fields. This is one of the reasons why Estonia, as presidency of the Council, has prepared draft Council conclusions on horizontal gender segregation in education and employment, which we hope to adopt during the EPSCO Council meeting in the beginning of December. The draft Council conclusions are drawn from the review of the implementation of the Beijing Platform for Action in the EU member states on the topic of gender segregation in education, training and the labour market. This was also prepared by the European Institute for Gender Equality. Thanks for that as well. The report provides an analysis of gender segregation in tertiary and vocational education, training and the labour market, including by analysing the links between gender pay gap and gender segregation. Although the detailed conclusions are still a draft to be discussed between member states, we can say that conclusions will focus strongly on segregation in the fields of science, technology, engineering and mathematics, and on the other hand on education, health and welfare. Gender segregation is harmful for the whole society. It is the reason behind skills mismatch. It causes waste of human capital, resources and investments, and prevents altogether the realization of European Union's full innovative and economic potential. I would like to thank you all again for your valued work striving towards gender equality in our societies, and of course for organizing this important event today. I would like to remind us all that economic growth and gender equality go hand in hand, and people in more equal societies are happier. Thus, for equality, happiness and economic growth, I wish us all a productive journey towards gender equality. Thank you very much.
And our second closing speaker, as you can see, we started high level, so we are ending equally at high level. I'm very pleased to invite Mr. Vice President of the European Commission, first Vice President, sorry, Frans Timmermans. He has. I have been told that when this man came to the Commission, he brought humanity to the organization, and we are very happy that he's shown such big commitment to the gender equality and is here to close our conference today.
Thank you very much. Well, I was very lucky to encounter so much humanity when I arrived in the organization already. I hope you had a great day. I've had a great afternoon, I have to tell you. I want to thank you on behalf of all my colleagues in the Commission for making us, the Commission, such an important part of your conference. We have a lot to learn, but we also have something to contribute. I can now draw a couple of conclusions in wrapping the day up, but I will not have the last word. I'm very pleased to be taking part today in the Girls' Takeover. And so my speech will be taken over shortly by a young lady called Ritah, who will tell you more about what she's doing here in Brussels and offer a new perspective on the Gender Equality Index. I've had the privilege to meet Ritah this afternoon. She spent some time in my office. She spent some time sitting behind my desk. We even went to the college meeting room where she spent some time in Jean-Claude Juncker's chair, and it really looked good. And I have to tell you, I want to share with you what I learned from Ritah today. She was telling me about the situation in Uganda and what she's experiencing. And, you know, if you see the power of this young woman, if you see her determination to make something out of her life, if you see her sitting behind my desk and saying loudly, "One day I will be president." You know, I've got two daughters of my own. Your parents must be very proud of you, Ritah. I would be certainly very proud of you if you were my daughter. I have to say that. Let me give you something she taught me today. It's all about education. It's all about breaking through patterns of behavior, of bias, of what is then perceived or portrayed as a cultural thing, which is not. It's all about power. But also very concretely, what can we do? We need role models, she told me. In sports, when I came in, you were talking about sports, and she gave me an idea. It's her idea, and I picked it up, and I'm going to do something with it. I told her with pride, since sadly the Dutch men's team don't give us many reasons to be proud these days, the Dutch women's team became European champions this summer. And it's created a form of revolution in Dutch football because, you know, yes, nice, girls can play football, okay. But now we see we're actually good at it and we're actually able to win something. And this is creating a certain dynamic in the sports, which I think is very important. We need to do things. We need to make sure that we have more women in charge of sport governing bodies. We need to have, why don't we have more women referees in football? Do you think they can't keep up with the men? Of course they can. Do you think they don't have the authority? Hey, of course they can. My wife is a judge. I can tell you something about authority. So we need to do these things. But especially we need to make sure that boys and girls play football together until a higher age than today. We separate them much too early. Let's have them play together until they're 15, 16, 17. I don't care, as long as possible. It makes the girls better, it makes the boys better people. But now concretely, what I thought of when we spoke about that. This is not the case in Africa. Now in Europe, you know, girls are more and more part of the football game. Why not in Africa? Many of the European leading football teams have their satellites or cooperation clubs in Africa. I thought of this idea when talking to Ritah. Why don't I talk to UEFA, sit down with them and see if we can find a program where we ask these teams with all these cooperations in Africa whether they could not have programs for girls as well in Africa, so that girls can also be part of that sport in Africa, and perhaps we can break through some cultural barriers, some preconceptions about what girls can do and can't do. Just one idea I learned from Ritah today, and I'm grateful for that, Ritah. I will pick this up and I will report back to you, Madam First Vice President. I will report back to you if it leads to success, and also if it doesn't, because then you can be angry with me. So what can we do as Commission to improve the situation? I was carefully listening to you. I think we need to do many things. That's why we made a proposal on parental leave. You know, I'll say something about time in a moment, but these are things that we need to break through. I did not see the privilege of being a man or a boy when I was young. I thought that was a normal situation. And if you think something is a normal situation and then somebody challenges that because you're not aware of it being a privilege, you feel attacked and you resist the change. So I also had to be educated in knowing that the fact that I did almost nothing at home was a privilege, not normal. And when we got the figures here today from, you know, me portraying myself always as a feminist, and I say this with pride, I still am shocked when I read these figures that you have been working on. And when I still read these figures that, you know, men are still not taking part, even young men are not taking their fair share in caring and taking care of the household, etc. And I have to say we still have a long way to go. That privilege is still there and is not seen as privilege, but normality, and we need to do something about that. But also when I saw the reactions when we came out with our ideas on parental leave, some countries were saying, oh, well, Europe shouldn't be meddling with that, and that's our own business. And then a lot of young men across Europe said, hang on, it might be our own business, but I would like to spend more time with my kids. Why not? It would be a good idea if we could share that. Hang on, that's not a bad idea. So there is an awareness with young men that they can be better fathers. And yes, you lose a certain privilege, but you get something in return, which is even more beautiful, fatherhood in a more complete way. So let me look briefly at the issue of time. It's one of the most eye-catching things in the Gender Equality Index. It's a persistent and growing inequalities in use of time. On the one hand, women are still much more likely to spend their time on domestic tasks, as we've just discussed. One thing that really struck me is that while 56% of men have time to spend each week on sports, cultural, leisure activities, that figure is only 39% for women. So then I asked myself, as a father of 2 boys and 2 girls, why should my girls have less time to watch a movie or to do sports than my boys? I just can't accept that. So what are we going to do about this? just the idea that for half of the women in Europe, time is not their own. They are owned by time. They don't own the time. Is something that we need to do something about. It's also about power. We need to make sure that work-life balance is better structured. I heard the gentleman from academia saying about this. I raised the issue with the rector of the University of Rotterdam, saying, why does the Netherlands have sort of the lowest rate of professors, full professors in Western Europe? How is that possible? And even the University of Rotterdam is one of the worst in that. And his answer was, well, you know, we rate on the basis of research and the amount of papers written, and then of course they go off and have children and stay away. You know, and this is academia. If academia is in this sort of Stone Age attitude, you know, what is the rest of society going to do with that? And you know, especially in academia, because you are sort of putting half of Europe's brain power on the back burner, which is something so stupid to do, because it's going to hurt our society and our economy. It's going to be really a bad thing, you know. And we didn't move out of the Stone Age because we ran out of stones. We moved out of the Stone Age because we thought we had better things to do. So we need to take some steps in legislation, but as also I heard people say here, it's not only about legislation, it's also about attitude, about culture, education. This is what Ritah was telling me all the time. We need to have girls in school. We need to convince parents that girls do not need to get married when they're 14. We need to convince parents that sex is not a transactional thing just to get by. We need to convince parents that violence against girls and women is not normal, and we need to do something about that. All of these things happen, and they don't just happen in Africa, they happen in Europe as well. And it's a transactional thing sometimes, sexual violence, but mostly it's just about power. Because a girl who is smart challenges the privilege. And if a man doesn't see it as privilege, he feels challenged in his masculinity, in his position, and he wants to show that he's more powerful, thus hurting both himself and the girl. And we need to break through these cultural patterns. Ritah was telling me we need more examples in sports, in politics, of women who can do a lot better. And I also believe we in Europe need to be very much aware. And let me end on that. I've been speaking too long, and I do apologize for that, because it's Ritah's turn now to speak. I do believe that these are not innocent times in terms of women's rights. I do believe that the struggle we see, the ideological confrontation between what I would call open societies and closed societies, between people who believe in diversity and people who see diversity as a threat, is linked also with the position of women. Those people who pander nostalgia as a solution to all our problems, who say, let's go back to the past because that will bring us a better future of being amongst ourselves and going back to so-called values of the past. You know, my mother lost her job when she got married, and that was just, you know, when I ask her today, she said, yeah, it's crazy. Can you imagine? I lost my job because I got married. But at the time in the Netherlands, the second half of the 1950s, that was normal. Everybody accepted that. So we do evolve, but now there is a tendency of moving back. In this confrontation between open and closed societies, those who advocate closed societies all want to restore male privilege. And they use religion, they use culture, they use all sorts of arguments to do that. Let's not accept those arguments. For the sake of humanity as a whole, let's make sure that we treat our daughters and our sons equally. Let's make sure that they have the same opportunities. Let's make sure that we close the pay gap. Let's make sure that we close the pension gap, which is still 40%. Let's make sure we eradicate violence against women from our societies, which is still normal. Any form of sexism that happens everywhere. And it's not just Hollywood producers who are responsible for that. It is much more widespread. Let's make sure we speak up about this. Because silence is the best protection of those men who misbehave. Once again, thank you very much. But now it's high time for me to hand the floor, if I may, to Ritah. Ritah. Madam First Vice President, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ritah, 22 years old girls' rights advocate from Uganda. In Uganda, gender inequality is a key issue. I want to speak about the social, political, and economic aspects as gender inequality is a big problem in all three. If we look at the social side first, marginalization of girls begins at birth. In the social attitude towards girls at home, but also later when they go to school. For example, at the beginning of primary one, the enrollment level is very high for girls, but by the end of primary 7, most of them have been married off. In my community, it is believed that the moment a girl reaches puberty, she should get married as fast as possible. Because girls are seen as a source of income, our parents, especially those who have not gone to school, encourage girls not to get married. Child marriage is one of the main reasons why girls drop out of school in Uganda. Gender is made up of socially constructed roles between men and women, whereby the men have to do all the very heavy work like grazing cattle, while the women do other jobs like cleaning the house, raising children, and taking care of home. In other words, women cannot do what they want to do. Women do all the unpaid care work, so it is very hard for them to also get paid work. On the economic side of things, in general, women are poorer than men. This is partly because women they don't have the same access to good jobs. They are more likely to be street vendors than business managers in Uganda. And they may work but are not paid, especially if they do agricultural work. In Uganda, both men and women have equal property ownership rights. But this is the theory, not in practice. In fact, it is especially the men who both own and control the land. And even when a woman owns the land, men usually control it. When a woman grows crops for home consumption, the men will sell the crops and use the money. Similarly, access to loans from banks is very easier for men than women. This is because men have land, so they can get higher loans. Nowadays, companies and organizations are encouraging girls to apply for jobs. But most girls do not have the right qualifications for the jobs, and most of the girls are based in rural areas. So it is very hard to apply for these jobs. When I'm talking about the political side of things, I mean girls and women's role in decision making. Women in Uganda are more marginalized than any other group of people, that is, as a result of culture or tradition attitude from men and boys, especially at the community level. I'm lucky because my parents understand the importance of girls' rights, so I can participate in decision-making in our family. But most young people don't even do that. It is worse when it comes to women who have not gone to school. They are always seen in society as the uneducated. Even when they talk, their voices cannot be heard in homes and society as they are being seen as objects to their families. When the community is taking decisions, or the local council wants the community's opinion, we have community dialogue meetings. Everyone is welcome, but the problem is that girls do not feel that they can speak out. So only the boys and men's voices are heard. However, if you look at the composition of the local council, there is no woman working on the local council. And for these who have managed to get there, they pay to get there. There has been some progress in Uganda for girls' rights, but there is still a lot to be done. For example, the government has put in place free education for girls, but still, the girl child is not able to complete school due to the cultural norms. It is believed that girls should stay home and boys go to school. The government has also put in place some policies that can allow girls to go back to school after childbirth, but people do not know about them. And for these who know, there is still a lot of stigma for them. In addition, some girls do not have someone to leave their babies with just in case they go back to school. What needs to be done, or what needs to happen now? Girls and women must have the same opportunities as boys and men, so they can fulfill their potential and contribute to society. In Uganda, we have many good laws, but they are not enforced. That needs to change. Girls must receive education so no one is left behind, and they must be able to get decent jobs. We need more representatives at the local councils to represent women and girls. And we need your support, please. We need your support to encourage women to play a strong role and to tell men how important gender equality is. Thank you very much.
Warm thanks for these interventions. This was a lovely additional speaker to our conference. I'm sure this is a message that we will all be carrying with us after the conference. It's about time to close. Virginija, I would like to call you on stage to close a day for us and tell what are the feelings you are going home with.
The feelings are much stronger than they were in the morning after hearing Ritah, after hearing the presidency and the person who made the commission human, as Mira was saying. During my work in Uganda, I have never seen a girl like you who could speak out, and you really are the model, role model, so you could be the one really who could support and help and also be the one inspiring the girls in Uganda. It's great. It's great to meet you. As for the index, now I will tell you something I will not tell anymore. That's the only time. That's the experience when the index was being created. It was as a task in the roadmap of the Commission roadmap 2010-2015 before. And at that time, EIGE was not created yet, formally on paper, but not in reality. And when I started as the first person to work at EIGE in 2009, This task was moved to the Institute. There was not a single person, just me, for 4 months, and I knew that we have to deliver it quite soon. You know how important it is also to the member states. I started getting people. Jolanta came in about 1 month. Before that, there were a few people. And we knew that we have to be extremely careful. We need to be extremely professional, because if we fail with the index, if it is criticized, how can we propose that gender equality can be measured with something which we created? Suddenly, we were left alone. The stakeholders decided that maybe there is a risk that the index will not be solid. For about 2-3 months, we had a crisis at the Institute to decide how we will make it solid, that it will be taking roots in the European Union, that it will be used. We worked hard. The first launch, if you remember, in the very same place, 2013, it was moderate. Some of you have been in the first launch. It was people, organizations, of course, our partner supporters, they were here. But I can't believe how different it is today. Now we have the interest of the most important for us, officials, people, politicians, civil society. Now we have landed right. So I believe now, when we go home, we will celebrate all the Institute, because it is a piece of everybody's heart. It is a piece of everybody's brain. You see, now for us, it is really one of the things which now for the third time we see it's growing. The interest is growing. And I was really so happy to see, like even today, we know that the Parliament also plans now to see how they put it in action, both with inside but also with the national parliaments. We have the Commission, and we also heard the first Vice President, and we heard also our Commissioner Jourova in the morning sees the value of what really our brain and hearts produced. We have many, I met in the breaks, they were saying, oh, I got ideas. Most probably 5 or 6 people I talked with, they were saying, I got some ideas. I go home and I do those things. And that's what we wanted. So now, in 2 years, as you know, we will have the next index in 2 years. And it was funny to see that in Slido, you decided on the thing which we were proposing. So the next index will be focused on this work reconciliation, work-life balance, which means time, right, Jolanta? So, which means that since knowing that how important the parental leave, all the directives, but also this having time for yourself, having time to develop, to contribute, and to see to that your life is going on, that you really bring this contribution to growth. It will be extremely good occasion to add, to see, to analyze what can we do, what measures can the European Union take, that we go there. And I also heard, and we will discuss them when we come back, very interesting proposals. For example, you were talking about, let's say, how different aspects, health, age, poverty, how they could be added. How intersecting inequalities. This was the biggest issue. So we are also happy to see that now what we added was really appreciated by you. The thing is that index has to remain extremely solid. We cannot kind of risk of putting things in the index which we will not keep the quality. So now you all have to know that we will put only the things which really are in line and compliant with the methodology, so nobody criticizes us and say, oh, you know, EIGE's index is rubbish. We will keep the quality. But on the other hand, From 2019, we decided that we will have the index once a year. No, you won't get the same 100 pages report. That's impossible for us now for the moment with this small number of people. But we will focus on one domain. So time, then next, we will tell you next time. We will not want to, we want to keep excitement high. Next time it will be another domain. And in that domain, we will discuss how we could take the aspects which maybe cannot go as a core index, you know, for indicators, but who could show, who could fill in and show the differences, and maybe in playing with the roles, like we were talking about race. If there is no data, we cannot do anything, but we could see how we can analyze and how we take. So I promise to you, EIGE is committed. All of EIGE staff are perfect gender equality experts, and we will continue supporting you. First of all, the Commission, the Parliament, and the Council. We will support all the civil society organizations. We have so much to offer. So, which means that those 10 babies I was mentioning this morning, by the end of the day, there will be 14,000. Imagine if 2 years later, we come with the index and nothing happened. It's still snail's pace? No. We really heard very much today what we can do, which measures, and we have to do it. As many said, now we will act, you will act, and we will support you in acting. So thank you very much for spending all the day with us. You were extremely active listening. We got very many ideas. We will meet in different occasions, but also I would like to thank, first of all, the Presidency, the Council, the European Commission, you know, for helping us to use these premises again and go back with the thoughts, with initiatives, come back to us. We will do it together. Thank you very much.